What's up guys, and welcome back to the channel. Unfortunately, my last recording of this review has just got corrupted, so I'm starting again. Hopefully this is just as informational, but today we're looking at Journey to Foundation, which is a PSVR 2 / Quest game. I played the PSVR 2 version. It's based on a novel by Issac Asimov, which was released in 1951, which has now become quite a hit of a TV series on Apple TV called The Foundation. And essentially it is about a warring factions of the Galactic Empire versus this offside cult called the Foundation, who sort of segregated themselves from humanity to try and prevent the world from ending. I don't know the source material for either the book or the series, so I went into this completely blind basically. And you play as a member of the Commission for the Galactic Empire who has a power called mentalics or psychohistory or something like that, and essentially you have the power to read people's thoughts and emotions and use that against them in sort of an interrogation. So you get sent out on missions to try and recover people using the means of your mentalics. So I don't know what the TV series is like, if the characters in that have the same powers or not, but essentially the story of this one is you are sent to try and recover the sort of the princess of the Foundation, or the Galactic Empire, sorry, who has gone missing, and you have to try and track them down by all means necessary using your powers, and just finding out what's really going on with the Foundation and the Galactic Empire. Is there more to find out about the Foundation that you don't know, or like lies in the history of the Foundation and its creation? So I don't know too much, but I've probably played about 3 or 4 hours of this game now. I haven't completed the game, but I think I've made a decent chunk of progress in the game to figure out all of its mechanics and just how the feel of the game is. So this game has a variety of different types of gameplay, such as puzzles, combat, and dialogue and RPG elements. So I would say the strongest point or the biggest point of this is the dialogue choices and the RPG mechanics. You spend a lot of time speaking to people in this, and with there being the power of the mentalics, you have to kind of read people's thoughts and use their emotions against them in some instances to find out information, or you can read people's thoughts to find out information that you need, such as passcode keys or just ways of persuading people to get the information that you need. This is all about gaining information that you can use either for your own knowledge or to use against them to get a reaction. So that is the thing you're probably going to be spending most of this game doing. And if you already have an interest in the lore of the Foundation and the books, then I think this is going to be a lot more interesting to you, because you're already going in with a lot of knowledge about what's happening in this world, what these two factions are and the characters. Whereas for someone like me who has no idea, I feel like it's a lot of stuff that is sort of put straight onto you as you start the game. And I found myself, like, when you're playing VR games, you kind of want to mess around and interact with just like the location, picking things up and seeing what you can break and what you can smash. And when there's so much information that's being given to you, it's hard to absorb at the same time as taking in the world as well. So I feel like if you already are into this world, or sci-fi at least, you're probably going to be more involved in it. So they do have a lot of lore to explain to you in a very short amount of time. So yeah, if you want to just sit back, relax, and just take this in, it's definitely more of a game to do that regardless, in comparison to making a game that you want to play for combat and getting straight into the action and killing people and, you know, figuring out all these puzzles. There is a lot of dialogue in the game. If that does put you off, yeah, be aware of that. But if you are into the lore already, there's a lot for you to absorb into this. So yeah, with the puzzles in the game, I've only come across a few so far, but a lot of it is based on little sort of features you have in your wrists. You have a little welder that you can use to open vents and stuff, which is really satisfying. And the other one is a hack tool, which you use to open up sort of cabinets and security boxes to either gain something you need to progress or to get more supplies. So this puzzle is essentially like a big weird Rubik's Cube thing, where you have to connect the cubes to the colours in sequence without crossing any of the other colours. So hopefully I've explained that well, but it's pretty fun in principle. But what I found is it's not very intuitive. I don't know if that's just like because it's an early version of the game that needs a patch or something, but you try to join up the lines and sometimes it just would not go to where you need it to go, and it was really frustrating sometimes, where you try for ages to get it right, and then if you were to die like 2 minutes later, the checkpoint would bring you back before the puzzle, and you know how to solve the puzzle, but it just takes too long to figure it out because the lines just aren't working properly. So I don't know if that's just me being weird with trying to do the placements of it, or whether it's just like it's quite buggy in general. But hopefully that is something that can be patched out, because it is a lot of fun if you were to be able to do it more intuitively. As for the combat in the game, it is quite sparse from where I have played up to. There are moments where there's been quite a lot of action, but there's also been a lot of times where there's been a lot of dialogue and no action, which is it's the way they design the game. But it depends on sort of what you're wanting, because if you've been standing there for 20 minutes just in one dialogue tree conversation and you're itching to get into the combat, it kind of makes you think, oh, I wish I could just skip this and get to the combat. Or if you're having too much combat, you might want to go back to the conversation so you can chill out. But it all depends on you and your mood. But I would recommend, if you could do this seated, at least while you get to grips with the game, you'll probably have more of a fun time, because I played it after work and I was just kind of stood around for 20 minutes trying to get into the game, and yeah, I wanted to sit down for a bit, but that's just my situation right now. So yeah, the combat is quite fun at times, but it also feels very impactless, if that's a word. Sometimes the guns in the game, especially the primary weapon you get, which you can change to different styles by picking up these little chips that you insert to them. Yeah, but the initial gun, it just, when you're shooting the enemies, you do not even feel like you're doing damage to them. It doesn't feel like it's impacting them, and you only know they're dead because they drop down and evaporate. Whereas some of the other ones are more satisfying, but I feel like the haptics, they're there, but I wish they could be more improved to make you feel like you're actually doing some damage with these guns. But like I said, with the shotgun variety of the gun, that does feel a lot more satisfying to use. And you can see from the video of my gameplay where there's one moment where I just sort of pulled the adaptive trigger and was waiting for the perfect time to pull the trigger, and I just ran into some guy and just like shot him right in the face, and that felt great. So I wish there was more instances like that, but I felt myself dying quite a lot in this game, and I'm not sure if that's just because I was putting myself out in the open quite a lot because I thought I was closer to killing the enemies than I actually were. But yeah, I don't know, the combat, I feel like if it was a bit more impactful, it could be a lot more fun. And obviously there was a bit more of the combat sparsed in between some of the dialogue sections, but it's all about the story. The story doesn't have to dictate there needs to be action all the time. If you're there for the story, then yeah, you're getting a great amount of story and lore given to you. The visuals of the game, they're pretty good in instances, and sometimes they're not so great, but I will say the standout is when you are up close and personal with the characters. The character models look really nice and detailed, especially like when you're within a sort of human conversation distance. You can see that they're really high fidelity, and they almost have like a cartoonish look, like something you might see in the Walking Dead games. But it's yeah, the fidelity is there when you're up close. I will say when they are slightly further away from you, it does become quite blurry, which is quite unfortunate because a lot of the conversations in the game seem to be from a distance, so you're kind of stood back listening to them. And if you have the room space, you kind of walk up closer to them, but you can't move the analog stick to get closer. So yeah, a lot of the times you have all these characters around talking, but you're not seeing the fidelity, you're not having that connection, because when they're a bit further away, it is quite tough to see the clarity of it. And it works best when you're seeing either character up close or your own hands and your own wrists and weapons, because they're obviously closer to you, so they're really high clarity. I don't know if this is to do with the foveated rendering, but regardless, when you are close, things look good. When you're not, so it's a bit grainy, a bit blurry, but I don't know if that could be fixed with a patch either. One of the biggest features of this game and its gameplay is the power of mentalics and psychohistory, if that's how you pronounce it. Your character has the ability to read people's emotions, and you do this by kind of pressing this button on the thumbstick, which opens up the sort of mode for it, and you can use your hand. I think you pull a trigger and you twist your hand as if you were twisting into their brain to either find out their emotions or to just see what they're thinking about and using it against them. And it does feel pretty satisfying when you actually control it. You can see it in some of the gameplay moments where I was actually held like hostage. I was completely held under this box. I could not get out to shoot anyone, and I put my hand over the box and used my mentalics to drain their life force, and it actually worked. So in one hand I was shooting, on the other hand, over the top of my own vision, I was able to use the power, which I thought was quite cool. But those moments are far and few between, and honestly I ended up dying a lot of times just trying to use that skill. But when you use it in the gameplay to get information out of people and read their emotions, it is really satisfying to use, although at the same time it's not very subtle to them in a story sense, because you're kind of just walking up to them and doing this, and I don't know how they're not getting freaked out by you doing that. But yeah, maybe they're just completely blinded when you're using your powers. But it definitely adds an interesting stance to the game, especially with the way you can sort of shape it with the RPG elements of the conversation. You can make different decisions and really get into the nooks and crannies of conversation with people by reading their thoughts and using it against them to find out more information, or to just pressure them into talking about something that you want to know. If you're here for that, it's more like an LA Noire style game, or like Mass Effect with its dialogue trees, which it has its perks as well. So it really does depend what type of game you're expecting out of this, but I think I've given you a good idea of the types of things that are in the game, and you just have to weigh up if you would enjoy this by the sort of ratio of what type of gameplay is in it. So I would say most of it has been dialogue based, and then I would say about, I don't know, 30% combat and 15-20%. Those percentages probably are not making any sense, but it's mostly dialogue, then combat, then puzzles. And yeah, that has been my thoughts. It's been off the top of my head. Obviously I just recorded this and it went corrupt, so I had to make a new one, so this is all completely off here. So hope you've enjoyed this review. If this is your first time checking out the channel, do subscribe and hit that like button, because I do want to make a lot more VR content, and hopefully when we get a bit more time we can do more let's plays and things like that. So let me know down below on the comment section if you've played this game. I want to know your thoughts on it, and let me know down below if there's anything else VR that's coming out that you're excited for, that you want me to talk about. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video.